see, no.
I'll email it to you. That is the actual Capitol crawl of the people crawling up the stairs to the U.S. Capitol. Led by that 8-year-old I was telling you about, Gloria.
Oh, cool.
Okay, we are live.
All right. Welcome to the regularly scheduled July board meeting. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the recitation of vision statement, where every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. We have a moment of silence for Helen Chung. We'd like to ask for a moment of silence this evening for our district to recognize the passing of East High School speech and language clinician Helen Chung. Helen began her career in MMSD as a first grade teacher at Lindbergh Elementary School in the 1996-1997 school year and taught there for 3 years. She later became a speech and language clinician and returned to MMSD in the 2005-2006 school year. She spent time at Memorial High School, Cherokee, and Badger Rock Middle Schools, and was at East High School for over 11 years. Helen had a sincere love for children she worked with, and she loved the challenge of seeking out the special ways to support each student. She was an expert educator, role model, and mentor for so many others over all her years of service. Helen had a deep appreciation for culture and saw it as the heart and wealth of humankind. She had a great love for the world of people, and she was a committed citizen and voter, exercising her voice and marching for causes in which she believed. Most importantly, she has had an unforgettable impact on the lives of her students. Helen's passing has taken an incredible toll on her former students, many other students who knew her dear colleagues, and hundreds of families across MMSD. We remember her tonight. Please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Helen. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution, 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act, and I will turn it over to my colleague, Nikki Vandermeulen.
Thank you, Gloria. Myself and Savian Castro, who co-wrote this resolution to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the ADA, which I'll read now, and recognize this month of July 2020 as Disability Pride Month. Whereas people with disabilities, both hidden and visible, as well as the deaf and autistic communities, should be guaranteed the right to dignity, equitable access, and meaningful representation in society and government. Whereas people with disabilities must receive a quality education to be productive members of that workplace, to raise families, to exert control and choice over their own lives, and to have equal opportunity to access and participate in all facets of life. Where having a disability should be seen as a natural part of human existence and should be accepted and celebrated rather than seen as a disease or a condition that needs eradication. Whereas on March 20th, 1990, the Capitol crawl took place, where 1,000 protesters with various physical disabilities, led by 8-year-old Jennifer Keelan, climbed out of their wheelchairs and crawled up the stairs of the U.S. Capitol to show support for the creation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and what we now know as the ADA. Whereas 30 years ago, on July 26, 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law, ending discrimination against and providing equal opportunity for people with disabilities in employment, education, government service, public accommodations, commercial facilities, and transportation. Whereas Madison, Wisconsin has a rich history of disability advocacy. Whereas Madison, Wisconsin passed the Equal Opportunity Ordinance Act on December 12, 1963, and added disability as a protected class in 1992. Whereas in 1971, Faith Kale, former student at Madison Central High School, created MOBILE, or the Madison organization behind independent living, and later inspired the drafting of Wisconsin Statute 134.87, known as the Wheelchair Lemon Law, which was enacted in 1992 to protect consumers who buy a wheelchair or scooter that is defective. Whereas the National Association for Mental Illness was created in 1979 in Madison, Wisconsin, to improve the quality of life for people living with mental illness. Whereas in 2020, President Barack Obama officially declared July 26th Disability Pride Day. Whereas in 2012, it was decided that Madison, Wisconsin should have its own Disability Pride Day. Whereas in 2014, T.S. Banks, a Madison East graduate and poet, created the Loud and Unchained Theater Company dedicated to gender justice, queer justice, and disability justice. Therefore, be it resolved that the Madison Metropolitan School District recognizes the month of July 2020 as Disability Pride Month. It is further resolved that the resolution be distributed to every school in the district, proposed to be adopted by the Madison Board of Education on June 29th, 2020. Thank you for your time, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Nikki. That was wonderful. Do you want to go ahead and make the motion?
I move that the Madison Metropolitan School Board officially designate the month of July Disability Pride Day. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, guys. This is really important to me, and I appreciate it.
Good job, Nikki.
Thank
Great job, Nikki. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we don't have any approval of minutes. So next is board president's announcements. But before I go there, Jane, do you want to, I know the handbook was referred to a future meeting. Did you want to touch on that briefly?
Yes, I would like to do that, Gloria. I just want to make the announcement that today I'm making a modification to the agenda for tonight. And in working with the board president, I've decided that the administration will not move forward with the handbook recommendation at this time. While I'm disappointed in the tone and strategy that MTI has chosen to take, we are committed to continuing communication in the best interest of our students and staff. To be clear, the administration has met this month with MTI regarding the employee handbook and actually had agreed on a few things we were bringing tonight as well, but we will bring those later. And we've met on these proposed language changes, and we continued to pursue meetings with them last week, but were unable to have those meetings. So I just want to say we will continue to meet until the time that this is scheduled on a board meeting again, and we hope it's going to be July 20th. The administration is committed to the board's stance on racial equity and reviewing existing policies and procedures that interfere with our progress on fighting racism within our educational system. This agenda change will provide additional time and opportunity for MTI and their membership to put forward equitable strategies and concerns regarding district administration's recommended changes before a future special board meeting. The board has made it clear, even yet again tonight, their commitment to racial equity. Therefore, the need for dismantling inequities in our policies and structures is more urgent than ever. We must move forward in this work. So we are looking forward to meeting with MTI in the future and to understanding what they will offer as alternative options. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Jane.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we've had significant, we have had conversations, and our thought was that, and as confirmed, the administration has met with MTI. And I think based on what we have been hearing, I think there has to be a continued opportunities to meet with MTI with regards to the employee handbook and the proposed changes. However, I just want everybody to, keep in mind here that when we are dismantling anti-racist policies and practices within our structures of government, that there will be a time when something's got to give. You can't have it both ways. You can't call out racial equity and being anti-racist and not in times of opportunity, right? When it's good and when it's not, right? We are going to get it, go through a time when it's going to impact those who have been in power, those who have had privilege. And that is what we're trying to dismantle here. So the board has consistently provided guidance to the administration on reviewing our policies and practices to dismantle anti-racist practices. And we intend to do that. We showed that tonight. I think we are also about collaboration and getting voice. And this is an opportunity. This is not an opportunity to stop our work. We will continue and pursue this in the near future. And we want to get the voice from MTI and their membership to help us move forward. I think together we can prioritize recruiting and retaining a diverse and talented faculty. We are very grateful to everyone in our community who has pushed us forward as we embrace the learning and commitment by addressing a history of policies that greatly benefit some communities while greatly disadvantaging others. So, the lasting impact we will make will allow for our students to see themselves valued and reflected in the educators they see each day at school. We are excited to continue working together and moving forward. We know the impact that having diversity of people working in our workplace has with our students, right? We see it over and over again. We know it. Many board members have been influenced by our own educators of color and staff of color. And so as we continue to dismantle racism within our schools, we got to be all in. And that's a request that I make of MTI and everybody. If you're marching the street, you can't fight us when we are continuing to dismantle these racist policies that continue to feed into the inequities of our staff and teachers of color. And so next month, in a couple months, it's going to be something else, right? We need a level playing field for everyone, and that's what equity is. So I look forward to further discussion around this topic. Thank you, Dr. Belmore, for bringing this, and thank you to Deirdre and all of our HR team for committing to this work. And I look forward to further conversation.
Process question.
Sure.
I want to clarify the record. This board has never voted on the particular anti-racist issue regarding the handbook. Therefore, I can't comment on something I've never voted on. I would like to get rid of racism as much as possible. I just want to make the record accurate that it hasn't been formally voted on, so that way people don't accuse us of not. I respect Gloria for bringing this. I think her points happen to be well thought out. I just wanted to be clear for the record.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay, so we're moving on to, I got some other announcements here. Okay. Juneteenth 2020 recognition. So Madison has celebrated Juneteenth each year since 1990. The Juneteenth holiday commemorates June 19th, 1865, the day that Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, with word that the Civil War had ended and all formerly enslaved people were now free. It is especially important in the current climate with racial tensions and racist incidents that our board wholeheartedly recognizes this day and its major significance in the Black community and in the Madison community as a whole. This day embodies progress and the ongoing multi-generational struggle to achieve equity for all people and communities in this country. S.J. Hemrick, art and reach teacher at Randall Elementary School, has been named the 2020 GSAFE Educator of the Year Award. That's great. S.J. Hemrick, one of our beloved teachers at Randall Elementary School, was honored at the virtual GSAFE 24th Annual Celebration of Leadership on May 30th. This award is given to those who vigorously practice teaching tolerance and uplift students in the classroom. SJ brings joy, inclusion, and plenty of rainbows to the Randall Art Room building and to MMSD. The board congratulates and appreciates SJ Hemrick for creating an inclusive, loving, and caring environment for our students. Congratulations. The Director of Instructional Technology, TJ McRae, our very own, featured in the Wisconsin State Journal's Know Your Madisonian. If you haven't picked it up, make sure you pick it up. This past month of May 2020, our Director of Instructional Technology, TJ McRae, was featured in the Wisconsin State Journal's Know Your Madisonian, working for our district since 2017. TJ has been an essential part of the virtual learning transition this year. TJ's work resulted in the district coming close to having a 1-to-1 ratio for each student in the district being able to learn with a laptop. The board congratulates TJ and his team for making instructional technology not only an integral part of learning, but an essential part of learning as well, while striving towards equity for all of our students to have the technology needed to keep learning. TJ, I think you're on because I saw you. Congratulations.
Yeah, TJ.
That completes my president's report. Moving on to superintendent announcements and reports. Jane?
Yes. Thank you, Gloria. We have a short film for you tonight.
Oh.
So sit back and relax, and Barb, I'm sure it's going to be up soon.
Working on it, 1 second. Oh, God.
We're gonna get volume.
We don't have sound, Barb.
Really, I can hear it. Okay.
Hey, Barb, when you go to share, there's an application that where you can share the sound from your computer. That's what you need to do.
Stand by for technical improvements.
Oh, thank you, TJ.
You're welcome.
See how valuable he is?
I know.
One more time.
Congratulations to our 2020 Mann and Sanchez Scholar graduates.
Now we
During
don't
a
have the video,
pandemic
Barb.
and devastating.
Sorry?
Now we don't have the video. We need the two together.
We we were seeing your board agenda and not the video. I don't know if it's on a separate.
Can you see the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations to our 2020 Mann and Sanchez Scholar graduates. During a global pandemic and devastating acts of racial injustices across the nation, you still succeeded. You graduated, and I want to highlight what an incredible achievement this is. The Mann and Sanchez Scholars Programs were created 20 years ago with two goals: to raise the graduation rate of our MMSD students of color and to ensure they are equipped with a post-secondary plan to prepare them to be college and career ready. We want our scholars to know the whole MMSD community is standing behind you, wishing you a bright future. You succeeded in adapting to a global pandemic, and you continue to excel in the face of adversity. We are so proud of you and are inspired by your diligence and hard work. Congratulations to our Mann and Sanchez Scholars graduates.
Just wanted to say congratulations to those fine scholars. Back to you, Gloria.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so now I will hand it over to Ananda for the report out for instruction work group.
Thank you, President Gloria. All right, so we had quite a few items this past month. We looked at recommendations from administration in regards to changing board policy around attendance. And we had a pretty constructive, I think, conversation, and we're able to give some really good feedback to the staff. I will say that both the attendance and virtual learning are things that are we're still learning from, and we're gonna get additional information on that, and we're gonna bring that conversation back in August, and as well as the conversation around graduation. Regarding the virtual learning update, we had a brief overview of how far both staff and district folks have addressed the moving from in-person to virtual in a very short period of time. We have a lot of information that we've been collecting over this past month and a half in regards to our surveys, in regards to focus groups. So we're going to be soon receiving more information on that. And the team is going to be ready to having a more robust conversation around virtual learning, what they're calling 2.0. I'm excited about that. And that conversation is going to again come in August. We're not going to have a instruction work group in July. That'll give us both more time to see how summer plans are happening in our schools and are developing, what's changing, for us to kind of review the reports from how our students are and teachers are experienced that. Along with that, DPI also released guidance. That guidance I know is going to be changing in a bi-weekly basis. So it's really bizarre to be in a space where we're having a 100-page document that's going to be revised every 2 weeks, but that's where we are at. So we ask everyone in our community that watching us and all our staff and our students, bear with us, a lot of patience, a lot of grace, because so much of this is changing daily, and we're trying to respond as quickly as we can, and really centering the experiences of our students, and really centering how our staff are negotiating this new learning format. So we're going to have a much more robust conversation and a greater level of update in our meeting in August. Regarding the handbook, both our board president Gloria Reyes and our superintendent Jane Belmore have already spoke to that. We had potentially a precipitated conversation earlier this month. And then after that, we received a lot more information. I think there's still many items to get clarity, but I'm in full support around positioning ourselves to really becoming our anti-racist, and that really gets translated into our policies. But we need to make sure that when we have dissent, that people get the information, in particular around when we talk about the rights of workers and how does that play out as we're deconstructing racism that is embedded in our schools and our policies. What I found to be particularly interesting about what our President Gloria Reyes said tonight was, really focusing on addressing racism in our schools, which is something that I had publicly said in 2012, and I was later accused of being pro-voucher. I haven't forgot this, y'all. Like, this is still a sore spot for me. So, Gloria, when you said that to me, tonight in public, in a board meeting, and being able to share this space with you, it meant a lot to me. So thank you so much for saying that, because we have, as a community, come a long ways, right? And saying and negating that we actually have a very structural issue in our schools, in our district, and being able to be brave to address those things and navigating the struggles that comes with it. So in preparation for our meeting in August, and also for the next year to come ahead, I'll be collecting information about what folks want to be able to inform the scope and sequence for next year. Aside from that, we're also going to be looking at the review of timelines. So I know I said a lot of things about, we are not short of plans, but I believe plans are important. So we're going to be reviewing like the timelines of all the plans, when they're due, what information we're going to be reviewing for the upcoming year. So if board members or community members have things that they want to be elevated to the instruction work group, let us know, and we'll make sure to take those things into consideration for the upcoming school year. Thank you so much, President Gloria, for the opportunity to share my updates.
Great, thank you, Ananda. Next, we'll move on to report on items on operations work group. Chris Crucy.
Gloria. So the operations work group met on June 15th. We got an update on the proposed referenda for the fall election, and we discussed the budget and proposed changes to our fund balance policy. As a board, we slowed down our decision about going to referendum because of COVID-19 and the impact it is having on our community. We also want to acknowledge that the movement for Black lives is and should be centered in our work. The board is currently engaged in listening to our community, both through polling and direct outreach to individuals and organizations. We welcome input on the referenda from our community and encourage everyone to reach out to us. What we're hearing is that despite the economic and social challenges of coronavirus, many members of our community feel that the needs of our students and the schools they attend are greater than ever. Support for the operating referendum has seemingly increased since October. and the need to invest resources with equity and close the technology gap resonates now with our community more than ever. Additionally, low interest rates coupled with a favorable construction environment make this an opportune time to move forward with much needed major upgrades to our high schools and other facilities investments. Based on our discussion in the June operations work group, I requested a special meeting on July 13th to vote to place the operating and facilities referenda on the November ballot. As for the budget, we've received no official word from the state about potential cuts for the coming school year. After reviewing various revenue and expense scenarios, a majority of board members felt we should build our draft preliminary budget around a projected $7.6 million cut from the state, which assumes no new special education reimbursement aid or tax levy authority. Without new revenue, a majority of board members felt we should put staff compensation, both base wage and steps, as well as some of our strategic equity projects and 5 central office positions on pause until more information is known. The draft preliminary budget we're voting on tonight reflects those assumptions. It is also not set in stone. While our June budget is usually pretty accurate, this summer the board and administration will be revising the budget once we know what state funding looks like. If we vote to place the operating referendum on the ballot on July 13th, we will put together a budget reflecting the additional revenue authority we will receive if it passes. Finally, tonight, we will vote on proposed changes to our fund balance policy. These changes would allow the administration to begin a new process to assign fund balance for multi-year projects, such as safety and security upgrades to our buildings. The changes do not alter our policy on how much fund balance we carry year to year. Our next operations work group meeting is on July 13th after the special meeting on the referendum. If we have information on the state budget, we will discuss the budget for the coming school year. We will also discuss the annual cash flow and a proposed change to our transportation policy. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. All right, now we move on to action items. Handbook has been referred to a future meeting. Action items that proceeded through the operations work group held June 15th. We'll start with board policy 6071, the district fund balance. I move that the Board of Education revise board policy 6071, district fund balance, as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular meeting dated June 29, 2020, effective immediately.
Second, Ali.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, aye, show with your hands.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, 7-0 passes. Next is the preliminary budget adoption that Chris just discussed, and I may need some help from Chris or Kelly. Kelly, you on, I hope. Okay, so I'm gonna read this off, and there's a bunch of numbers, and so let's just get started here. Okay. It is recommended that if the board approve and adopt the 2020-2021 preliminary budget as proposed, in the total amount of $526,771,506 or $471,375,101 net interfund transfers inclusive of all funds, with said proposed budget having been identified in the document entitled DPI Preliminary Budget Adoption Format dated June 29, 2020. Version 2. By approving this budget, it is understood that the employee handbook will be modified as necessary to implement the improved budget. Can I get a second?
Second, Chris.
Chris Chrissy. Okay, second. Okay.
Gloria, just a reminder to include Julia in the voting. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Nikki.
One, I don't understand why the employee handbook part is in there when we haven't voted on the employee handbook part. So I'm kind of confused on that. But my second point is I thank Kelly for the work on the budget. I think she did a good job for the things she did. And I'm sorry I have to vote against it. But on the anniversary of Scott Walker signing Act 10, June 29th, 2011, I'm not voting to take away any rights, any responsibilities, or any money for our teachers, even temporarily. And therefore, I will end up not voting for the budget. But I respect my colleagues and I thank you for their work, for your work.
Okay, Jane?
Yes, thank you, Gloria. As you mentioned, and Chris has mentioned, we are in unprecedented times now that will require the board and the administration to continue to work together to remain flexible and adaptive throughout the summer as both our fall reopening plan and our state funding authority solidifies. We're in a time of unprecedented uncertainty, which leaves us in a place where we really have no choice but to put a number of our decisions on pause until we know more. Again, as Chris and Gloria have said, the budget we present to you tonight is a budget that retains the most level of flexibility for the board in the upcoming months, but it isn't the final budget. This June preliminary budget is designed to ensure that we can continue our operations throughout the summer. It isn't where any of us hope it will be in October. As we learn more about our final fall school opening plans and our final revenue sources, we will continue to work through our budget plan accordingly together. Tonight's updated preliminary budget assumes that we will no longer receive $7.6 million in new revenue from the state and therefore puts on pause any new spending. This effectively pauses our previously planned compensation increases and a few strategic equity projects not previously approved. Of course, we hope that advocacy efforts help to improve these outcomes by fall, but we do need to be prepared for the state budget reductions that may come in the upcoming months. Amongst all the uncertainty, what we do know is that our students need us now more than ever. We know that the more flexibility we have now, the better we can assure that we are able to put students at the center and to protect what matters most, our positive student-staff relationships, social, emotional, and mental health supports, and student support structures. Now I'm going to ask Kelly to say a few words on the technical aspects of what is in front of you. Kelly?
Hi, thank you, Jane. So in addition to the important information that Jane just reminded you, that's included in this preliminary budget, I want to make sure everyone's aware that this budget does not reflect any future decisions this board might make regarding any potential referendum strategies. That future budget will be considered for the October budget. This budget does build in an anticipated $4 million from the federal government in COVID spending. That revenue has been accounted for in this budget, and so has the corresponding anticipated expenditures. It's important to note that our COVID expenditures will far outpace the expenditure or the revenues that we will receive from the federal government. By the time you see this budget in October, it will also be inclusive of the additional COVID expenditures that are needed, by which we will need to repurpose our current budget and available budget in order to ensure that we open up the school year in the fall with all the resources needed for our students and staff for a successful school year. So with these things in mind, the key financial information you're voting on tonight included in this budget include an operating budget of $429 million net of interfund transfers, an all-fund budget of $471 million net of interfund transfers, which is a total levy increase of 1.2%. That for the average homeowner will actually be a decrease by $8 for the average homeowner due to our overall changes in the budget and the decrease in expenditures in front of you tonight. So thank you for that, and I'll answer any additional questions. Gloria, I'll let you direct how you want me to work.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Anything else from the board members? Questions, comments? Oh, it looks like Ananda and then Ali. In the-
I wanted to ask a question to Chris because I know she was against voting in favor of this. And I'm really curious if there was ever a time that you yourself or any organization that your support, that you would allocate spending money without knowing that you actually had that money.
Me?
That's a good question, Ananda. And right now we just have no idea what we're going to get from the state, and we're just making a guess. And our guess could be wrong in that it's too austere. Our guess could be wrong in that we're not being austere enough. We just don't know. So I was just stating that I felt our assumptions were wrong, but I was not questioning those assumptions of anybody else. It was just my gut that with Governor Evers, things probably won't be as dire as we are predicting right now. I could be completely wrong, and I am just saying that as an individual board member and not as chair of this committee. As chair of this committee, I go with the majority. So
Thank you for clarifying that, because that's something that left like unresolved for me from the last meeting. I also heard you specifically say that you are making assumptions. You are making assumptions that the state is going to follow through on their commitments, and you're making assumptions that the advocacy was going to happen. And I felt complicated because I do wanted to make those same assumptions. Like, I personally have worked under our current governor. He's a former educator. I feel like I have a good idea where his values lies. And I feel really strongly that he will continue to prioritize education. When we sit in this board, we have a responsibility to, we are all guessing, right? And so it's one thing to guess with a certain level of risk, and there's another of guessing to be a conservative. And in this particular instance, my heart and my thought and my understanding lies in this is not our final decision around this. I think that's important for the public to understand. This is a placeholder based on what we know currently. That is not to translate to our staff that we don't value them. That is not to translate that to our governor that we don't believe in him. That is not to translate to, other educators that we don't want to have, that we don't want them in our buildings, and we don't want to have them, we don't value them as educators. So, it's probably one of the hardest decisions I feel like we are making as a board, because I know we have tried really hard to not be where we are today. The other thing I wanted to share is that I'm a very visual person, so I had asked Kelly to create a graph explaining to me where is our budget, like in regards to the amount of uncertainties that we have. And when I look at the graph and to see that almost half of our budget is in a limbo space, that is very critical to me, and to think about the uncertainties that we are currently, and to having to make a decision on that uncertainty. And I feel confident to say, that the only reason that I'm making the decision that I'm making is because this is not our final decision. Once, new information comes from the state, once we learn a little bit more about where things are at, we'll be able to come back again and make further decisions. And I know, Chris, you also work for the state, so I know you get information in a different way than most folks. Information across the state is changing all the time. Things that we receive one day, guidance that we receive one day in regards almost everything, where we work, how we work, travel, spending, all of that is constant change. And I think it's really important for our community to know that we don't know what's right or wrong at this point. We're making the best decisions that we can to inform the way in which we're moving forward, with planning, with school, with making sure that we're educating the children in this community, given that it's still in a crisis situation. And pretending that it's not happening or just being optimistic and Pollyanna about it. Although like I share those sentiments, I wanted to be there as well. I find that to be extremely irresponsible to our staff and to our families and our students. And Nikki, I see your hand. I was not making any comment. I totally understand.
No, it was on a different point.
Yeah, I totally understand, Nikki, where you are, and I respect where you are. You have not wanted to have any conversation about this. I think my comment was more to do with like.
No, I just thought of something.
Trying to like give words to the excruciating situation that we are currently. Kelly, can you say anything else about how, like our conversation, is there anything else that you wanted to add in regards to our conversation and the complexities of having half of our budget be in the state of limbo?
Well, so, I mean, I think there's the revenue side and the expenditure side of our budget. The conversation Ananda and I were having on the revenue side is a good portion of our revenue is tied to categorical aid per pupil, which was a Governor Walker tool for funding, which is not at all built into state statute, and is well beyond the budget reductions that we've got built into this budget. And as far as some of these cuts could potentially go. On the other hand, on our expenses, the flip side of that is the vast majority of our expenses are fixed, meaning we don't have any ability to reduce them in the short term. They're tied to open enrollment legislation. They're tied to private school voucher legislation. They're tied to 2X charter legislation. And that list goes on and on and on of our expenditures that we really can't reduce. We don't have the ability to reduce it. So when it comes to big cuts, there are very limited buckets of expenses that we can even reduce. And in that bucket, there are little to none that don't affect students or staff. Everything we do is about students and staff. So anything that we cut is going to affect students and staff. There's just no way around it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been doing good budgeting for the last 10 years. We constantly make decisions such that if it's not our highest priority and not tied to directly supporting students or staff in the classroom, that we're finding ways to repurpose it so that it is. So there is very, very little available in this budget to reduce without affecting staff and without affecting students. And so Ananda and I were just having that conversation about the lack of flexibility on the expense side, and then this wide range of unknowns on the revenue side.
Thank you.
Now, my question is just a vision question. Can you make?
Nikki,
Sorry.
Ali's next, and then I'll go to you. Ali.
Thank you so much. So I think, we can't stress enough kind of the tightrope that we exist within in this current moment. And we've had this discussion. In my personal opinion, this discussion leads us to the importance of the referendums and the importance to getting to work and investing in public education and making sure that we're not navigating a budget that is this tight. I do want to thank Kelly and your team for really prioritizing, making sure our schools are staffed well and that our schools are safe and that we can have a reentry plan that, puts public health first. And also making sure that the taxpayer is not absorbing, the reality of COVID entirely, and really looking to our communities to support us in every way possible. I also want to thank folks in the community who have donated and fundraised and know that our schools are in a place of incredible strain right now and are showing up for our kids, and are showing up for our teachers. That is such a boost of confidence in terms of looking to our community to make sure that we continue to invest in public education, and continue to support our students to the greatest possible extent. So thank you for all of your work, Kelly. I am ready to start having the conversation about the referendum. Up until then, I think we've got to balance the budget, and I think we have very, very difficult options. And I think, you know, folks have said they don't like the options we're navigating, but there are other options that folks can put on the table. And so if folks are saying, hey, I would rather lay folks off than navigate what we're navigating, I think you got to be clear about that in this conversation.
Great, Nikki?
I was just on a technical issue. Can you please use slightly bigger font? I had a hard time reading the chart. The
When-
bars weren't, the bars on the chart, on the visual, on some of the graphics lately, I've been having a hard time reading.
Oh, the one that was presented at
Yeah.
operations work group?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was the only one I couldn't see.
okay,
That was the only thing.
okay, great, thank you.
So.
Anybody else?
Bard,
Savion?
Yeah, I just want to echo the comments from Ali about this conversation really translates into our future conversations about the referenda. And what's not lost on me is, I think, you know, from a conversation I've had with you, Kelly, is that this budget right here is really akin to a continuing resolution. And I think the decision that we're making here today is the most prudent one for our system, in that it's easier to, you know, depending on state and federal budget impacts, it's easier to reinstate steps or what have you than to take it away. It's also worth considering that we are required by state law to balance a budget. And, you know, we have a series of upcoming decisions, particularly in August, where we have to approve, I think, our debt situation, which could have longer term impacts on how we pay for debt service, which eats at our budget as well. And so, you know, I can't wait to get more clarity on budget impacts from the federal and state side, so we can build this back up if we're in that position. Otherwise, you know, I fully understand how this can cause a degree of anxiety for people. But I think we're in this position because we're seeing a big lack of leadership at the federal level, and that has downstream effects. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Savion. Anybody else?
Been burning the midnight oil to put together not one, but two draft preliminary budgets this year, based on all of the uncertainty we're facing.
Sources, our titles, for example, very little of it is tied to any substantial kind of guarantee law. And when you consider everything happening at the federal and state levels, it's all pretty uncertain, to be honest. And so we were just looking at kind of how bad could be bad on the revenue side, but we spent the majority of the conversation on the expense side, talking about the limited movement and areas to move.
That makes sense. Thank you for that clarification. So this is an unusual budget year, to put it very mildly. I look forward to working with this board throughout the summer and into the fall on an updated budget scenario, once we know more about the state budget and once we've made a decision about going to operating referendum. I want to thank all the board members for the really heartfelt comments that you've made so far. This is a tough decision. Ananda, I completely agree that we're all guessing right now. And as individuals, we're all just making our best guesses, and we're all moving forward based on those guesses. And I think we all owe each other the respect and the value that goes with what we're doing right now. I also want to thank the community and all of our staff for really rallying around our schools and around our kids, given this budget scenario. I think that the outpouring of support we've seen from the community for our schools really shows how much Madison values public education. In deeply uncertain times, I think it's human nature to be cautious. And the budget that we're presenting tonight reflects the uncertain times that we're living in, with no increases in special ed reimbursement, no increases in the per pupil tax levy, and the maximum 15% reduction in state equalization aid. We're being really careful. Well, I may be wrong. As we discussed in operations work group, I was the lone board member who didn't agree with these assumptions. And again, I'm saying that as an individual from the place of valuing what every person brings forward in all of your opinions. Our revenue assumptions have required us to put all staff pay increases, as well as some really important investments in strategic equity projects on pause. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to take those off pause once we have more information. But for this reason, and also because the community first saw this budget on Friday and hasn't had adequate time to digest it and respond to it and give us their feedback, I am going to be voting no on this budget. Savian brought up somebody brought up if there were another option on the table, what might it be? And Savian actually brought up the fact that this budget seems a little bit like a continuing resolution. There's nothing in state law that says we have to pass a draft preliminary budget by the end of June. It is how we work financially, it's how we keep our books functioning, but it's not required in state law. And honestly, I would have preferred to see us consider a continuing resolution and passing our draft preliminary budget later in the summer when we knew more, or we hopefully will know more about our state funding.
Are you making
back in 2013, we didn't pass a draft preliminary budget until the end of August, and many of our neighboring districts don't pass their draft preliminary budgets until August or September. That said, I deeply appreciate the diversity of opinions on this board. I embrace how everybody is trying to approach this difficult budget and again, work with the assumptions we have to work with. And I really look forward to working with everybody on the next iterations of this budget as we move towards the school year.
Great, thank you. Julia?
Thanks. So I just want to clarify, I'm new here, I'm getting used to the process, but I had a question for Kelly. What's the point of passing a budget right now if we don't have to until later this summer?
So we do have to. We need authority to spend as of July 1st. We do. The districts Chris is referring to have a different process, which provides the authority for spending through October earlier, more in April, often with like annual board meetings and such. Or annual budget meetings and such, and that's not our process. Our process is that our fiscal year ends on June 30, and we need the board to give us authority to budget and spend as of July 1. We use the vehicle of approving a preliminary budget for that authority. That's our vehicle. If we chose a different authority, it would be a different motion and a different tool, but it would be for the same purpose. So irregardless, July 1 is 2 days from now, and we do need operating authority and a vote tonight.
Great question, Julia. Anybody else? All right, I think that we'll move on. I think the only thing I have to want to say is encourage our board not to feed fear and anxiety around this decision in our budget. I think we have to remain optimistic and provide good information into our community so that we don't spark fear in people and panic. Information is good, right? Engagement is good. And I encourage each and every board member to do that. But really stay away from, this perspective that, we've done this because we want to do this, right? It's a hard decision. Every board member has talked about that. This is a hard decision to make under current budget situation. But I'm optimistic as well, right? I'm optimistic that, we will get additional funding and we will be able to continue to keep our students at the center of all of our decisions and support our staff and our teachers moving forward. So, okay, Ali?
I'm sorry. I am curious really quick before we move on, because we just cut the contract with SROs, if Kelly could speak to how that impacts the budget. I think it's a relevant thing to speak to this evening.
Yeah, so in the time between kind of your end of your special meeting and your vote and this meeting starting, we worked with Gloria and Barb to get a new DPI budget posted. The DPI budget is what you all vote on for the official DPI purposes. And for our overall budget purposes, the budget book is the same. But what you're voting on tonight does have the funding related to the ERO contract removed from what is called the purchasing services line. And that funding has been moved to the staffing salary line. It is not tied to any specific position, not tied to any specific school or school district department. It's simply put in as 3.5 FTE, which is the equivalent of the ERO contract cost. The board in the future can make the decision on kind of where those FTE goes. Those decisions do not need to be made tonight, but they're in the budget such that you don't have to re-vote down the road to decide kind of where they go. It can be built into the overall plan or your committee if you like.
Thank you, Ali, for that question. I was supposed to say that at the beginning. So
Thank you so much for speaking to that.
All right. So Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand so I can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, any opposed? Okay, 2, 5, 2. Motion passes. Now moving on to the next motion is the tax levy. It would be then further recommended that the board approve the preliminary tax levies by fund, with the said levy approvals being: 1, for the purpose of enabling short-term borrowing by the district during the 2020-2021 fiscal year, and 2, subject to modifications by the board prior to November 1st, 2020, in conjunction with certifying the final levy amounts based upon the then current status of the 2020-2021 school district budget, considering such alterations and amendments as may be made prior to levy certification. Okay, I'm going to read these off. We got first the general fund, Fund 10, general fund, $306,163,974. Fund 38, non-referendum, is $4,506,595. The Fund 39 referendum approved debt service, $6,327,475. Fund 41 capital expansion fund, $5 million. Fund 80 community services fund, $12,133,666. And the total tax levy, $334,131,710.
Second.
Who did the second?
Chris.
Chris, okay. All right. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All those in favor? Aye, with the show of hands. Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for all your work. I know this has been hard, and we will continue. Appreciate
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all you too. Appreciate it.
All right. Next, we are moving on to the consent agenda. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in section 9 of the electronic agenda prepared for the June 29th, 2020 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board. Can I get a second?
Second, Ali.
Okay, Ali, second. Okay, any separations? Ananda?
9.14.
9.14.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Okay. Any others? Chris?
In addition to 9.14, 9.22, and 9.35.
Any other separations?
Sorry. Can I just clarify, if you have only a question that you need answered, you don't have to separate out the item unless you really want to have a separate vote on the item. Thank you.
Ananda?
Okay. So when does the conversation happens now
So
or?
the question would happen, yes, we would address the question now, yes.
Okay. So I understand that that this is one of the platforms that we use for summer school. I don't know who is Lisa going to be talking about this item?
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and separate them because I have a feeling this is gonna be a longer discussion.
Okay. Sorry.
So no, that's okay, Ananda. So okay, so we separated 9.14, 9.22, 9.35. The other motions, we have a second, and all those in favor in approval? Aye. Show of hands. Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, now let's go on to 9.14.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand, we have multiple virtual platforms and I'm just trying to understand a little bit of the strategy around. Jane, are you speaking to that?
I can say that both Lisa and Nicole are here and TJ, so I'm sure we have some staff who can speak to that platform.
Yeah, can you just talk just a little bit of, so for us to understand like the why are we using multiple platforms? How is the selection of the platforms are working? And then what is this something that we're just kind of learning and testing different things and the staff is also learning and testing different things? And then so we make different decisions or more informed decisions for the fall?
Yeah, so Lisa, can you address that?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot and then maybe, excuse me, I think Nicole, I see you there too. So this particular 9.14 is a platform that we're using both in summer school and in the fall. Different platforms are for different groups of students with different needs. And some of these platforms that you see in consent are renewals. And some of them are new ones based on our search for platforms that best meet student needs. Nicole, can you speak to this one in terms of the summer school piece? And I see Cindy, you're there as well.
Yes, so we have a variety of digital platforms that we are using this summer to meet the virtual need that we have right now. And all of them are used during the regular school year. So this is a continuation of, and due to the number of students that we have engaged in summer school, we are asking for, or we needed to purchase additional licenses to meet the need of these virtual platforms.
What, Cindy, were you going to say something else?
I was waiting to see if that answered your question, and I don't have the consent in front of me, so I was curious if this was for Edgenuity
It is
specifically.
TJ, yes, Cindy, it is for Edgenuity. Sorry, because I was going to speak up if you didn't, but it's for Edgenuity.
Yeah, so so Edgenuity is a full credit recovery and course platform that we use currently and have used for the last 2 years in our high schools for credit recovery. So the courses are actually there. It's very adaptive. And for this year, for summer school, with kind of everything we went through in this reactive approach to virtual learning through COVID-19, we wanted to utilize something that we were already using. We wanted to utilize something that had approved and vetted content that was in the platform. And so we thought this was the best way to go, especially for our high school students that are in credit recovery. With that conversation, we wanted to then purchase the licenses that would be using for the fall. In the fall, we usually use Apex, which is one of our credit recovery course options, and Edgenuity. And going into the fall, we were expanding our access to Edgenuity because the interface is more student friendly. There's a little more flexibility. So we're trying to scale up on the Edgenuity and scale back on our Apex. So it is something that has been in our high schools, and it is an approved credit recovery platform. And so just to provide a little more context to that, Anand, I don't know if that helps answer the question or if you have other things.
No, it helps. So just a couple of other, both, one, just kind of, when, of course, when we got the memo, I don't have anything to reference from, like as far as price goes. What are we talking about as far as, and also the usability for both staff and students? And I'm not specifically just talking about Ingenuity. So if you have other context to kind of help me reference, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so price range, that's why we bundled it together with our licenses for the fall, because it gave us a better price to bundle it for the fall, and we knew that we were going to already use it for the fall. So that goes to the price. In terms of usability, the thing about Edgenuity, what it does, it has built-in diagnostics and pre-tests for students. So students are able to take an assessment. They're able to kind of see what learning they need to focus on in areas that they already know. And it drives the students in an adaptive way to that specific components of the curriculum. So it's built in. There's language supports that are there. There's kind of built-in tutorials and tutors that are there as well. And then in addition, obviously, we have the expert teacher that is also working with the students, both in a synchronous and asynchronous format. And they utilize the platform in addition to their own support.
Thank you, Cindy. I think I'm okay for now.
Okay, Chris?
Thanks. I just want a clarification. The license goes through August 2021, but the consent memo really addressed summer school need. I'm just curious, as we move into fall and possibly beyond, and we're looking at a hybrid or virtual model for our schools, is this tool really just going to be used for credit recovery, or are we also looking at this as a tool that would be used more broadly for online learning?
Yeah, Chris, I think that's a great question. We know for sure we'll use it for credit recovery, and I think we want to learn from summer school exactly the experience of our students and staff to think about using that content potentially in the fall also, especially at our secondary school. So that is one of the things that we are hoping to learn through summer school to see if we want to scale beyond credit recovery and also just full online. Sometimes students outside of credit recovery use this online platform in the past due to other things that are going on with the student where they might not be able to engage in the full class, similar to how we also use our Madison virtual campus. We're hoping to learn a little more this summer to have considerations for the fall. Nicole, I don't know if you would add anything to that, but I think that's about right.
I think that covers it.
Just to build on that question, I know that the instructional subcommittee that is designing virtual learning 2.0, I think starts meeting next week. And I'm assuming they would have a voice in like if and how this platform would be used as part of virtual learning 2.0. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, so the team comes together tomorrow for the first time, and one of our deliverables is really thinking about resources, both online resources as well as curricular resources that we think might be best to provide to staff. The goal is not for the group to develop curriculum. The goal is more around the processes and really thinking about a social emotional, culturally relevant, and anti-racist approach to it. But this is definitely within the deliverables of a conversation that this group will be having.
Yeah, I would just chime in that I think it's really important that as we look at tools like Edgenuity, that there is staff voice in if we use how and if we use this in our schools as we move forward with virtual learning, and not telling staff that they have to use this tool. So thank you. I really appreciate the clarifications. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on this. I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of digital library access from Ingenuity in the amount of $65,000 to be paid from the 2019-2020 summer school budget and the 2019-2020 CRLM budget.
A second, Ananda.
Second. Okay, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Next one is 9.22. Chris?
I pulled this one. This is our recurring contract with ANET for coaching and formative assessments from a standardized formative assessment bank. Given the uncertainty of the next school year and the fact that we're going to have, as Kelly said earlier, a lot of unprecedented COVID expenses, I think it would be more appropriate to use our TID funding to address those expenses than to invest in a parallel coaching program when we already have our own instructional coaches in the district. I've said this, before, and so I'm just not comfortable supporting this large of an expenditure when we're in the middle of a pandemic and when we already have our own instructional coaches on staff.
Anybody want to respond to that, staff?
I can respond, Gloria. Thank
Okay.
you. The support that ANET provides our 8 schools is part of a 3-year strategy around assessment, formative assessment, and high quality instruction. It is TID funded. We have been planning for this with Kelly to make sure we have budgeted and we have met our obligations with ANET. They fund 50% of this. And this coaching strategy is actually not a strategy that is in competition with our own coaching strategy. In fact, they provide professional development to our coaches and to our building leaders and to our teachers as well. I would also say that ANET will be working with the big 5 school districts in the state of Wisconsin. DPI is working with them to provide curriculum development and assessment development that will support our reopening strategy in the fall. And the 8 schools that are working with ANET have already planned. They have already written their work with ANET into their school improvement plans and are very much looking forward to continuing that work moving next year.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to read this. I move that the Board of Education approve an expenditure in the amount of $250,525 to the Achievement Network for continued support in the areas of district level leadership, school-based leadership, and teacher team development for the 2020-21 school year from the 2020-21 teaching and learning development operating budget, $150,000 via TID 25, and Title IV, $100,525 via TIV. Can I get a second?
Second, Ananda.
Second, Ali.
Ananda, second. Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Raise your
Aye.
hand so I can see them. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, 5-7, motion passes.
5-2.
5-2, sorry. Motion passes. Next is 9.35.
So I am abstaining from this vote because American Family Insurance is one of the contributors and my employer has a substantial partnership with American Family Insurance.
Okay, great, thank you. I move that the Board of Education accept all grants and donations received by the MMSD since May 18th, 2020 in the total amount of $87,609 and 2. Is that the one you were talking about? 9.35, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I second, and I
Okay.
also want to say thank you. Huge thank you to American Family Insurance. Second.
Second. Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes with Chris abstaining. And that is it. Next, we go to other reports to the board. City of Madison Education Committee.
There's two on not meeting until probably in the fall.
Okay, Student Senate.
Right. So Student Senate has just had our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, and our main focuses were on virtual learning. We put together a statement about how we want to see kind of increased kind of educational standards with teachers next year coming into the new year with if we continue with virtual learning. And then we also discussed a lot about how we would like to have a focus on mental health coming up this year, especially due to recent events with coronavirus. I think it's really important that we continue investment into that and continue to look for ways for students to feel supported within the district. So that's going to be one of our main focuses this year, and we're really looking forward to working with all of you.
Great, thank you. MSCR.
Yes, after a long hiatus, we finally met, had an excellent presentation on the school forest, and I never knew how extensive our school forest was, how we just finished up a new high ropes course, and how in the future it will be used post-COVID, and different activities that can be used for both student groups and staff retreats.
Great, thank
Our
you.
next meeting has not been set.
Okay. All right, next move on to other business. 4-year-old kindergarten, 4K 66.03 intergovernmental agreements. Do you guys want me just to read this, or does administration want to talk about this?
These are agreements that we have had in place in the
Okay.
past. It's just an annual update.
Okay, so the recommended action is whereas the Verona Area School District and the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District have established 4-year-old kindergarten programs to serve age-eligible students, and whereas the Verona and Middleton Cross Plains Area School Districts recognize the potential educational benefits of providing families with options for 4-year-old programs as authorized by the Department of Public Instruction to meet the needs of students eligible to participate in 4K programs. It is hereby resolved that pursuant to section 66.0301 of the Wisconsin statutes, the school boards of the Middleton Cross Plains School District and Verona Area School District agree to establish and maintain on a cooperative basis 4K programs as set forth in the agreement prepared for the June 29, 2020 regular meeting for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
I don't think we vote on this, do we?
Yes.
Okay, we do. Okay.
Yes.
Second, Nikki.
Yep.
Julia, your advisory vote?
Hey.
Oh, Ananda, did you have a question before? Okay. All those in favor, aye. Raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next, summer 2020 Board of Education meeting schedule. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following dates for summer 2020 meetings. July 13th, Operations Work Group. July 13th, Special Meeting in Open Session Workshop. August 3rd, Instruction Work Group. August 3rd, Tentative Special Meeting in Closed Session. August 10th, Special Meeting in Open Session Workshop. And August 15th, Board Retreat.
Second.
Second, Nikki. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Regular meeting dates for 2020-21 school year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following Mondays for holding the regular board meetings at 6 p.m. over the 2020-21 school year. For 2020, we have July 27th, August 31st, September 21st, October 26th, November 23rd, December 14th. And 2021, we have January 25th, February 22nd, March 22nd, April 26th, May 24th, and June 28th.
Second.
Nikki, second. Any discussion, questions on that? Okay, Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. And we do not have any old or new business for this meeting, and we did it. Okay, we got past this tonight. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
I second.
Second, Ananda? All right. Julia, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are
Aye.
adjourned.
Good job,
7-0.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Later.
Thank
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Bye.